Hello, my name is Heather Meyer, and I will be running everything to the background for our session today. Welcome to today's webinar, Go From Good to Great in Your Studio Teaching. We are thrilled to host today's webinar with the American String Teachers Association. Stay tuned for future webinars in this series. So let's get things started. I'm pleased to introduce today's presenter. Dr. Quintin Morris enjoys a multifaceted career as a violinist, educator, entrepreneur, and filmmaker. He has performed and given master classes around the world. Dr. Morris is a professor of music violin at Seattle University. He holds a doctorate in violin performance from the Butler School of Music at the University of Texas at Austin, where he studied with Daniel Ching, the first violinist in the Mura Quartet. He is also the executive director and founder of Key to Change, a nonprofit violin and viola studio serving middle and high school students from South King County that focuses on providing learning opportunities for young musicians of color. Dr. Morris, thanks so much for being with us today.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks so much for joining this webinar, and I hope that what we learned today and what I'm talking to you all about, you're able to apply to your string studios wherever in the world you are. I see in the chat there's people from Italy and China and all over the United States and Canada. So thank you so much for joining us. So as you heard, I'm professor of violin at Seattle University. I also run an organization called Key to Change. It's a string studio that I founded 7 years ago, which serves students from the South King County area here in Seattle. It's a very underrepresented, underserved area, lots of students of color. And I run that studio in addition to also having a studio at the university. And so the things that I'm going to talk about today, I think can apply to anyone, whether you're teaching at the college level or if you're teaching at the elementary or secondary area. I think that there is something that we can all learn and benefit from. And I'll just say to you that all of the things that we're going to talk about, some of them might be a little unconventional and a little radical, but these are all things that I have tried, and that has been very successful in how I've been able to build my studio. I started this organization, Key to Change. Next slide, thank you. And this organization serves middle and high school students, as I mentioned, from the South King County area. Our mission is to inspire underserved youth through world-class music instruction and to support their development as self-aware leaders. This area in the South King County area, I actually grew up in that area. And one of the reasons why I started this organization is because when I was a high school student, I used to have to take 3 metro buses in order to get to my violin lessons each week. My violin teacher played in the Seattle Symphony at that time in the 90s, and there was no teacher in my area that I could take lessons with. And so since founding this organization, I thought, okay, this would be an organization where we provide a high level of music instruction. We also provide and remove all the barriers that students face with not being able to take lessons. And so we address them head on. Many of our students are students of color. My college students have been participants or have been interns in the program as well. And that's given them great insight to be able to learn how to teach younger students. Next slide. Our mission with Key to Change is we tell all of our students, you belong here. So no matter what a student looks like, what their socioeconomic background is, no matter how much money their parents make, where they work, what type of instrument they have, we welcome all students from beginner level or never have played an instrument all the way up to advanced. We've had enormous success in the last 7 years, and I want to share some of the secrets and some of the things that we've had that has contributed to our success. Some of our success has been really huge, such as our students met Dr. Jill Biden, the First Lady of the United States, and had an opportunity to perform for her. And actually, just a week and a half ago, 2 of my students performed for the Vice President, Kamala Harris, at an event here in Seattle. Next slide. Since then, in the last 7 years, I've had 12 students in the last 7 years who've made their concerto debuts with orchestras, including 3 with the Seattle Symphony. I have another student who's actually going to be making her um, debut with the Seattle Symphony in October, which is crazy because it's the same week that I have another student who's playing with Seattle Philharmonic. So I have 2 Seattle orchestras, one that's a symphony and one that's a Philharmonic, playing in the same week. Next slide. Additionally, there's been lots of student accomplishments within our studio. Our students have won lots of different regional and local competitions. We have an annual solo string festival, which is kind of like a solo ensemble. I call it solo ensemble on steroids because we give scholarships to college. We also get lots of things donated, such as instruments and other supplies at that festival, and students always look forward to it. We premiere works by 20th and 21st century composers. We also have actually a composer in residence here. Every year we hire a composer who comes in and writes music for all of our students from beginner all the way up to advanced. We've had students who've matriculated to different conservatories and music schools, CIM, Peabody, Boston Conservatory, etc. Students have also gone to Aspen and Meadowmount. But most importantly, students who have studied in my studio have become more confident, self-aware, responsible, and caring individuals. And, I am a firm believer that the violin, the viola, is just the vehicle to the much larger, bigger picture, which is that we want the instrument to help them in their development as young people and also be a source of inspiration that they can then pass on to someone else as they get older. We have served hundreds of students from all across South King County in 7 different school districts. So now to the big $1 million question is, how do we create a vibrant string studio? Next slide, please. And I think the most important thing that you want to ask yourself as teachers is, first, define your purpose and the community you want to serve. So you want to ask yourself reflective questions like, who are you as a musician and as a teacher? That is so important in being able to know first, as you, as the individual, as a musician, what can I contribute? What can I give to students? And what is it that I can do to help them, not only just as musicians, but also as people? And then the second thing you want to ask is like, what are your values? What is it that you really value as a musician, as a teacher, and as an individual? And what do you also care about? Like, what are the things that make your heart just beat really fast? What is it that keeps you up at night that you're like, I feel like I can impact positive change here, or I really care about this thing, or I really care that students have these resources. For me, it's underserved students and students of color. That is what I really care about, and that I'm really passionate about, is providing access for those students who just have been marginalized, who have not had opportunities given to them. But with the right resources and the right opportunities, they can thrive. So asking yourself, what is it you care about? And then, kind of going to the next one, which is, what demographic of students do you want to teach? And then why? So, there's all different types of students that come from all different areas. And so you want to ask yourself, like, is it because I want to teach students from a certain income level? I want to teach students who only go to these types of schools. I only want to teach students who play these types of instruments. Being really clear about what type of student you want and the demographic, and then asking yourself, why? Why is it important important to you that you do this? And then once you've done that, then I think you can start to kind of do some research and I call it market research, and finding students who are in alignment. That's the key word, who are in alignment with your core values and what you can offer. Because the last thing you want to do is have a student who's not in alignment with you, and then they have a different set of expectations from you than you have from them. Next slide, please. Okay. The one thing that we have done, which has contributed to our success here at Key to Change, is we have a program that is affordable. So if you go to our website, keytochangestudio.org, you'll see that we have both need-based and merit-based scholarships. And I wanted to create a studio where it was fun, where learning was the norm, and that it stimulates active learning and creativity. We also created a specialized curriculum of pedagogy with our world-class faculty. And then we have kind of an evaluation process as well, where we assess our students every quarter. And for me, I think it's really important because we want to foster those long-term relationships with students and families. And in my case, because we serve a lot of students who are underserved, creating those healthy relationships and being demonstrating to parents and students the importance of that, I think helps them not only have better relationships with us as teachers, but also in their own teachers at their own respective schools. And then I think the last two, which is an inclusive environment that gives hands-on attention. We have students from all different backgrounds, all different ethnicities. And I think that that is also really important when you're talking about inclusivity, is that everyone looks different and colors are beautiful. People of all different ethnicities are beautiful. And that is something that we really emphasize and work on in our studio. And then we create opportunities where students are able to take that pedagogy, take the things that they have learned, and then really put it into action. Okay, next slide. So you want to ask yourself, again, these core questions. Who are you as a musician and teacher? What are your values? What do you care about? What demographic of students do you want to teach and why? And why is it important to you? Okay, so if you're wanting to go from good to great, or you're even just starting from zero to, getting started, these are the types of reflective questions that you really want to emphasize when you are starting out or when you're trying to move to the next level in your studio teaching. Next slide. The goal, and I can't emphasize this enough, the goal is to provide a service and value for students. I think that there is this misconception that we are the teachers, we're the experts. And yes, that's true. But with us being the experts, we are in service to our students. And the teaching that we provide to students has to be of value. And that takes place not only in your studio culture, but it also takes place in how you recruit and then how you retain. And we'll talk about that in just a bit. Next slide. So before you start recruiting, remember to consider this: the demographic of students that you'll teach. That's really important. The ages that you want to teach. Do you want to teach children? Do you want to teach, I don't know, kids who are 1 year old, 2 years old? There are people who do that. Do you want to teach middle school students? Do you want to teach high school students? And do you want to teach college students? Getting really clear about the age, because all of those students in those age demographics, they all have different types of ways of how they learn. So getting really clear about that. Or do you just want kind of a gumbo of students of all different ages? There are people who can do it all. But if you really want to be kind of focused in, asking yourself that. And then the other part is What types of lessons do you want to offer? Do you want to do group lessons? Do you want to do private lessons? Do you want to do a combo of both? I do here at Key to Change, we do group lessons. We have 6 different types of group lessons from beginner all the way up to advanced. We also do this thing called combo lessons where students are able to take group lessons and then a bi-weekly private lesson, which kind of serves more as a tutorial because we have a lot of kids who don't want to commit to the private lesson every week. So they come every other week. And so they'll do group lessons twice a week and then their bi-weekly private lesson. And then, of course, we do the private lessons, which are once a week, the traditional once a week. And then we also have this program called Young Artist Academy. And Young Artist Academy is real cool because it gives students lessons twice a week. And so that's for more of the diehard. They're motivated to practice and they're really interested in playing concertos and that sort of thing. And then finally, we have a program called For Fun. So these are for students, and we all know who these kids are. They're involved in track, baseball, choir, Key Club, National Honor Society, soccer, on and on and on, right? And they take on all of these activities, but they still love the violin. They still love the viola. Well, guess what? We created a class just for them because they won't really have the time to practice. So what we have said is, you know what? Do all your activities, live your best life. But when you come one day a week to For Fun, you can do your practicing here. And then you can pack up the instrument and go home. And what we have found is by doing that, the level of expectation it's much more converse between both the student and the teacher, where they know, okay, I'm showing up, I'm having fun, and then I'm going home. Okay, next slide. So here are kind of the target audiences of of the types of different students that you might want to think about recruiting. One is, of course, for us, it's middle and high school students who have an interest in extracurricular activities, students who have limited access to music education, underserved, underrepresented students, and students of color, schools that prioritize arts or music activities, or, just educators who want to create other opportunities for students, and then parents and guardians who are looking for after school activities. So I would encourage you to, definitely look at this slide because these are the demographics and all of the different ways and why students are interested in taking lessons. Next slide. Here are some kind of successful recruiting strategies. Of course, we do a lot of our recruiting. It's word of mouth. And that thing, word of mouth is so powerful and so important. And so we have students who, bring their friends in or want to observe, etc. That is number one. But when you're first starting out, you might want to go to an orchestra class. You might want to, reach out to a school and let them know exactly what it is that you can provide that's of value for their students, and then show up to different types of events at schools, introduce yourself, volunteer, you can also do some press, every community. And I think I saw someone who in the chat who said that they had a population, it was very small. I don't remember offhand, but every community wants positive press, right? And so if you're sitting at home and you're teaching lessons, let somebody know about it. That's a way to get more students included and involved in your program. Of course, there's lots of different, partnerships with school districts you can have, but most important is you want to give away your time. I know that is a crazy thing to hear, but I am convinced, and I have done this myself, is when you are able to volunteer time, give away free lessons. Hey, I'm going to give you a 30-minute lesson. I'm going to give you a 1-hour trial lesson. That gives the student, the prospective student, an opportunity to get to know you, and it gives you an opportunity to get to know them. Again, it's what can you provide that's of value. Next slide. So back to my point, I can't emphasize this enough. Give away your time and do it often. Do it. Do it. I promise you, you will get more students this way. Give perks along with free lessons. Strings, there are lots of different, luthiers and music stores that will donate strings to you. They'll give you gift cards. My kids love Chick-fil-A. They love Amazon. So, I get those, cards. Sometimes even parents will donate the cards that we can give out to students. But the more you can give, I promise you, the more you will receive. And I know it's like, oh, it's my time. I need to be paid for my time. And yes, you do. But when you are trying to recruit and you're trying to build a community and a body of students, give away that time. It will help you immensely. Next slide. Okay, so I want to emphasize who you are and what you provide and how you help students is really all that matters. Yes, you went to, 3 conservatories. That is so great that you have a DMA or a master's degree, or taught here at this place and this place. All of those things are great. But in that moment, when you are with that prospective student and that parent, whether you are at a university or whether you are, trying to recruit an 8-year-old to your studio, what you can do for them and how you can do it and how you communicate that and their experience with you in that moment is all that matters, really. Remember, it's about what you can do for them versus what they can do for you, right? So you have to put yourself as kind of the servant leader of, I can help you accomplish this. I can help you learn this piece. I can help you accomplish this technique. I can, rather than what can you do for me? It's what can I do for you? Next slide. Okay, here are some examples of what we've done here at Key to Change. You belong here. That's our tagline. Meet your new best friends in violin and viola lessons, right? So you can see these are 2 girls. They're actually best friends. They are very happy together. You can see, take lessons as low as $17. Sign up now. So when you're putting together your marketing, keep it clean, keep it concise. Use 3 to no more really than 4 word target messages, right? Keep it clean and tell them quickly what it is that they're going to do, right? What it is that they can receive. And then go ahead and tell them what the price is. People respect you more when you tell them up front how much it's going to cost, rather than it having all of these kind of hidden fees kind of feel. You want to tell them up front, okay, you can take lessons here as low as $17, right? Next slide. You'll see another one here, right? We gave away 2 weeks of free lessons. So where the tagline is, you belong here, 2 weeks free trial. So if you don't like it, no worries. You don't have to do it. But if you do like it, then we're going to talk to you about a commitment. We're going to give you 2 weeks free. Enroll now. So the more that you can give away things, that's going to help you. All right. Now let's talk about how to design your curriculum for your studio. So there's lots of different ways and how you can design your curriculum. And I'm just going to go ahead and say this. Don't wing it. Don't wing it, right? There are teachers out there who will say, I'm just going to show up and I'm going to teach because I already know this piece, or I taught this a zillion times. Don't wing it. Create a curriculum. Create the curriculum. It shows you care. It shows that you're invested in their education, right? It's another advantage point to you building trust, respect, and honesty with those teachers, or excuse me, with those students. So, when you're designing your curriculum, of course, there's lots of different teaching methods here as it's outlined here, and there's lots of different pedagogues that have that. We kind of do, we use more of kind of a Galamian, kind of Paul Roland kind of method that's within our studio. We do teach some Suzuki music, but we're more of a Galamian, Paul Roland based organization. And then kind of the second thing is when you're designing your curriculum is assessment. How exactly are you going to assess them, right? And how is it that the students are going to understand how they're being assessed, right? So you can do that through technical exercises, repertoire choices. We actually have our own assessment plan with learning outcomes. We created our own type of practice log that is much more geared towards self-awareness. And we also do lots of concert performances. And of course, the concerts is really the best. The stage is the best teacher of all. So that's where students are able to take everything that they have learned in their lessons and really put it into practice. And then finally, community. As a teacher, what is your 1, 2, 3 punch? That's what I call it. 1, 2, 3 punch that's going to get students to learn quickly. So if I called you at 3 a.m. and I said, hey, can you come over right now and teach my class? What is the one thing that you're like, boom, I can do that thing and I can do it in my sleep. I can wake up at 3 a.m. That's my 1, 2, 3 punch and I can do it, right? Find that thing that you do well and spread it across your studio. Make sure that everyone knows that that 1, 2, 3 punch that you have, everyone's going to get, right? And then that will help enable student success. It'll create culturally rich experiences for all of your students as you are building or trying to move your studio to the next level. Next slide. So then along with designing your curriculum, there's inspiring student practice, right? So when you're talking about student practice, which is really important first, is to set realistic expectations and goals for students. Talk to them, ask them, what is it that you want? What is it that you need? What is it that you want to accomplish? A lot of times as teachers, we put ourselves in front and we're like, I want to teach this piece. I want to do this, right? But really, we don't think about the student. We think we are, but we're not a lot of times. And so ask your students, what is it that you are desiring to want? The one thing that I think we can all admit as teachers, no student wants to suck. And I'm gonna repeat that. No student wants to suck. What's the number one reason why students quit playing an instrument? They hate their sound. So for us here at Key to Change, that's the first thing we work on. We're going to teach you how to play. That's my 1, 2, 3 punch. We're going to teach you how to play with a sound that you like, a sound that you enjoy. Because one thing about kids is when they like something, they're going to do it again and again and again and again. So if you can inspire, if you can get students to play with a beautiful sound that they like, you got them. You have inspired them to want to practice. So then let's say they've started practicing. Then we've got to track the student progress. And so you have to figure out exactly what your tracking system, what your system is for student progress. So is it with them recording themselves? Is it with them, turning practice videos? Is it with them playing in studio class? Master classes with guest artists? Whichever, all of those things can contribute to student practice. But the other thing is you want to make sure that you are addressing any sort of technical habits in bite-sized pieces. So it can be very overwhelming if their student has hands like this and bow hands or bow arms like this, or, all of those things can be very distracting. But one thing, a lot of times, at least I have found this with some of the students that I have inherited, is that students have lots of issues with rhythm, with not knowing how to read the music. So there's a lot of music literacy issues there. So sometimes it might be good to just take a step back from the violin or the viola or cello, bass, whatever, and just work on music literacy, right? Because we want to make sure that our students are literate when they're reading the music. And then encourage finally the quality of practice versus the quantity of minutes. I know that it's important of saying, hey, you need to practice for 30 minutes a day, 1 hour a day, 15 minutes a day. But really what you're saying, or at least what I interpret that is if you're spending 15 minutes or 30 minutes, maybe choose one or two things that you can focus on and really be detailed and really make sure that that is good. So you want to focus on the quality, not the quantity. Quantity will come if the quality is good. Next slide. So here is your successful retention studio plan. So now you have done all of these things. You're like, I'm ready to move my studio to the next level. I'm ready to start my studio. Here it is. And remember, these are all the steps to keep your students enrolled, energized, and practicing. Let's go. Next slide. So the first is, I just want to tell you that from my own experience of running Key to Change, we have a proven platform supporting students with outstanding results. After the first 4 years, our studio grew about an average of 50% a year. And then during the pandemic, it popped way up to 233%. Since returning to in-person lessons, which has now been for 2 years, we've maintained around 92% of our student body. So all of these things that I'm suggesting to you, I have done. Next slide. All right, so the first is student parent conferences with the teacher. We sit down, we conference with every single parent and every single student, and we do it together, all right? And we talk about it. We write up a progress report, and we're very detailed. And when I say detailed, we talk about things that are going well with your left hand, your right hand. We talk about your intonation, your rhythm. So like if you're a college professor, it's basically a jury sheet, right? And we give that to every single student in our program. But we take it a step further. We write letters of congratulations to principals, superintendents, school board officials, city council members, the mayors of these small towns that these kids live in, and other community members, highlighting our students' accomplishments. So we have students who are playing with an orchestra. If we have students who just played like for VP Kamala Harris 2 weeks ago, you better believe it. Their schools found out about it. We let them know because we want to make sure that the community is invested in our students' progress. It helps the culture of our studio, and it also lets students and parents know we actually really do care about you and we're a champion for your success. And then we call it drive-bys. Sometimes we will call a parent unexpectedly and let them know, hey, your child is doing X, Y, and Z, and we just appreciate them, and we love their leadership. We love the practicing that they're doing. We just do that very randomly. Again, we're giving away our time because we are instilling a sense of pride and respect in our students, and we are letting everyone know that we really do care about them. Next slide. Other things that we do that are probably not as popular, right? But this is what we have done, and this is what has been really helpful. One is that we are authentic and we're real, okay? So we approach students, parents, and communities members from a place of care and not from a savior mentality. That means we are not trying to save anyone. We understand that we serve a marginalized and underrepresented community. Because of that, we are there to empower our students. We are there to empower the community. The community does not need to be saved. And I think that there are a lot of times, music teachers or just people in classical music in general say, oh, I got to go in. I got to save these kids because they don't have anything. They don't need to be saved. They need to be empowered. And so we make sure that in our activities with students and how we address them, that we are making sure that we speak a language of empowerment and not of us being a savior. The second thing that we do is we are patient with earning the trust of people who come from marginalized or underrepresented communities. And I think this is so important for people across the board, whether you are teaching out of your home, in a community music school, at the university level. There are students a lot of times who may not just be willing to trust you just because you won the Queen Elizabeth Award, or just because, I don't know, you might even won the ASTA Award for Teaching Award for the year. No shade. But the point is that no matter what your accomplishments are, not everyone is going to trust you right away. And that's okay. But you have to be patient and willing to earn their trust. Okay. And part of earning their trust is being patient, which leads me to the third thing, which is admitting when you don't know something and apologizing when you have made a mistake due to your own ignorance. As adults, that can be hard for us, right? Because students look up to us, younger people look up to us, and we're supposed to have all the answers. But the reality is, we don't always have all the answers. And the reality is that sometimes we make a mistake and we mess up. So we have to be willing and willingly, in a way that is authentic and real, of saying, I'm sorry. I'm sorry that you had that experience with me. I'm sorry that I hurt your feelings. I'm sorry that I said something that was offensive. I'm sorry that I was not sensitive to your needs, right? Apologizing, admitting fault is a human characteristic that I think helps all of us as teachers build even a stronger, tighter, more trusted bond with our students. And then finally, being an ally and speaking up for the rights of students of color, even if that means standing alone. So there are times when students face racism. There are times when students face things where they are prejudged because of how they look. Maybe it's their pronouns. Maybe it's where they come from. Maybe it's their instrument. Maybe it's their family members. Whatever, whatever those situations are, we as teachers sometimes witness it. And sometimes as teachers, we have turned a blind eye to that and we have not called it out because we're afraid of losing our privilege. We're afraid of hurting someone's feelings. We're afraid of retaliation. But sometimes, in order to have those students back, we have to speak up and we have to actually call out that behavior. And we can do it in a way that's collegial. We can do it in a way that is not abrasive, but we absolutely have to speak voice to power by calling that type of behavior out. That happens in music education. Next slide. The other thing that we do at Key to Change, and I would strongly encourage you to do this, is we diversify and we include. So we diversify our repertoire and we explain to students why it's important for them to learn more than just the classics. Now, I got my doctorate at University of Texas, Austin, and it was on 18th century music, specifically the Chevalier de Saint-Georges, Joseph Boulogne. I love 18th century classical music. I love Mozart. I love Haydn. I love Beethoven. I love Gossec. I love Stamitz. I love all of those things. But I also love the music of Florence Price. I also love the music of Jesse Montgomery. I also love Joseph White. I also love Caleb Bon Jones, right? And I think it's really important for all of our students, no matter who they are and where they come from, for them to learn that there is a vast, vast, diverse repertoire of music that is just waiting to be played. And the more that we can include that in our repertoire, and the more that we can include that in our musical libraries, I think the more we will have culturally responsive and very sensitive musicians who care about all different types of classical music. One thing that we do at Key to Change is we have a composer in residence. So every year we invite a new composer to come in and write repertoire for all of our students. And they're a person of color. And they come and they work with us for a week. So you might say, well, I don't know if I have the resources to do that. You do have the resources. There are tons of students throughout the United States, of America and worldwide who are composers. And what do all composers want? Their music played, right? And so you could write an aspiring composer who is at a university, at a conservatory. Maybe it's even someone who recently graduated, and they want more than anything their music to be performed. So you could write them and say, hey, I have a viola studio. I'm in Nebraska, and I want to, make my repertoire more diverse. I'd love to introduce my 8-year-olds to new music. I'd love to introduce 16-year-olds to new music. I'd love to have a composer come to my, string studio at my university. Would you write music for us? And more than likely, a composer who's, especially if they're just coming out of school or maybe still in school, they might say yes to you. So that's a way that you could diversify your repertoire. The other thing that we do is we seek out guest artists of color and conduct masterclasses and clinics for our studio, and we compensate them appropriately. So you could, write to again a recent grad, someone who might even be in school, or someone who might play in your local symphony orchestra, and ask them to come to your studio and give a masterclass. More than likely, if a professional musician enjoys teaching or enjoys interacting with students, they'll say yes if their schedule permits. And so that's one thing that I think you could do to create a more vibrant community with your studio, is to ask them to come and do a class. You can negotiate a fee with them or ask them what that is. And then you could even do like a small fundraiser, with your students to get everyone involved and engaged in the community. And then depending on where you live in the world, there might even be grants available through your local government, through your state, et cetera, that you could apply for as an individual, or even as there's community partners who would love to, write on your behalf and help you get some funding. All you have to do is ask. And then finally, when we diversify and we include, we also integrate anti-racist practices into our curriculum, classroom, studio policies, and norms. So we talk very openly about our differences. We talk about what we can do so that all students of color, regardless of where they come from, all feel included and feel engaged. And so that means that we do anti-racist training, and we bring professionals in. We've also read books, we've talked, but because we are so diverse as a community as it is, that it becomes just kind of a more organic, natural feel where all students and families feel included. Next slide. So I have a little participation quiz for you, and I'm happy to answer questions after this. But you're going to get this quiz afterwards, after this presentation is over. But I'll go ahead and read the questions to you. First, a student's values should be aligned with your studio in order to join your studio. True or false? Second one, you should absolutely never give away a free lesson to a prospective student because your time is too valuable and important. True or false? And then finally, as long as a student tells you that they are practicing, you should believe them and never, ever assign a practice log. Here's a free deal for you for coming to the webinar today. So the first 10 people who write me in my inbox, I'm happy to provide you with a 15-minute call and give you any advice on how to run your studio more efficiently. So these are all things that I have done, and I'm willing to talk to any participants and help you and be of service to you. I can now start to answer some questions. Stay in touch, of course, with me. There is our email. My email there is direct. And then you can find us on Facebook, Instagram under Key to Change. And there's also our website. So
Great. Thank you so much, Dr. Morris. We have a couple of questions in the Q&A,
Sure.
so I'll bring those to you. First, would you mind providing a sample or a template of your practice log in the
Oh,
materials?
sure.
Okay,
Absolutely.
so
And
friends, he'll email that to us and we'll put it out both on the ASTA and the Alfred websites with the materials that you get.
yeah, yeah. And I'll tell you that with our practice logs, so it's kind of a two-pronged thing. It took us about a year to kind of revamp. We went through probably 7 different versions of practice logs before we found one that we felt like kind of stuck. And this practice log is accompanied by an assignment sheet. So students today, they absolutely are obsessed with their grades and points, right? They want to know, did I get an A? If I didn't get an A, what grade did I get? Right. And so what we said is, okay, let's use this to our advantage. So what we created was first an assignment sheet. And the assignment sheet is basically kind of like a to-do list where students rank themselves between 1 and 5 every day in their practice sessions. And they rank themselves, 1 being poor, 5 being excellent. And they rank themselves on the following: intonation, rhythm, practicing with the metronome, tone. Oh, give yourself 10 points if you recorded yourself during your practice. Give yourself an additional 10 points if you listened or watched the video. Because a lot of times kids will be like, oh, yeah, I recorded myself. Did you watch it? No. So there's like 50 points total that students can receive each day. If you did not practice, don't lie to us. Just write, boom, check, I did not practice, right? And so that's kind of the assignment sheet. And every day their assignments are listed, and then they rank themselves between 1 and 5 of how many points they've given themselves. So it's a grade that they give to each other or to themselves every single day, and it's out of 50. The practice log that accompanies that assignment sheet is much more to be reflective. So it's almost kind of like it's almost like a music journal or a practice diary. And what we have each day is some sort of reflective question. So one could be like, what is one goal that you want to accomplish for this week? Right? And that could then be accompanied by, what steps are you taking? Are you practicing in different rhythms? Are you practicing intonation with a drone or with piano? Or are you recording yourself? Or, are you doing, different types of bowings to kind of trick your left hand or your right hand? So we ask these kind of reflective questions that students have to answer in the practice log. And in the assignment sheet, it's much more quantitative. So you have both the quantitative and qualitative learning that are being combined together that students are doing. And we have a really high percentage of students who turn their practice logs and assignment sheets in every week. Then what we do is we take it a step further, is we tally what their grade that they have given themselves is. And then when we do the student parent conference, when we present them with the progress report, we show them the entire trimester of what they have rated themselves. And they're always like, oh my God, I can't believe I practiced for this many hours. Oh my God, I can't believe that I actually got this grade, right? I got an 88% out of 100. And I gave myself that based off of the work that I did. So what that's doing is it's reinforcing a higher level of self-awareness, responsibility, and accountability, which I think is what we as teachers and frankly as adults, we want for all kids.
There are a couple of additional questions on the practice log. Sort of what you just said, how do you make sure that the students are honest on their practice log, but it's their ownership and they're completing it? And then what do you do if they don't fill them out?
Sometimes they don't. Um, and well, I shouldn't. Sometimes they'll say, "Oh, I forgot my practice log," because kids forget everything. So, oh, I forgot my practice log. I'll bring it next time. And it's like, okay, all right. And then they bring it, you
Yeah.
know. But the, the one thing that we have that I think is really cool is kids will say, "I forgot my practice log. Can I get a new one?" And I'll bring them both next time. We only collect the practice logs once a week. So, we know who those kids are who forget stuff. So, um, that's pretty normal. But for the most part, kids bring them. Kids
Great.
bring, oh, and they have to have their practice logs initialed by a parent.
Great.
Yeah,
So moving to scholarships and fees, do you apply for additional grants to receive money to supplement instruction and scholarships?
absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
for the $17 lesson, is that a per month or per lesson?
That's per lesson. So we do for that, that's for our for fun class. That class meets once a week for 14 weeks. So that total is, I think, $350 for the trimester.
And then how many instructors do you usually facilitate per semester, trimester? Obviously, that depends on your enrollment, but what's
Yeah,
your average?
we have, I say three and a quarter. So Noah Geller, who's the concertmaster of Seattle Symphony, he and I team teach our studio class together, and he comes in maybe once or twice a month. And then there are three of us who run uh, the rest of the classes. Our group classes can range between 3 and 12 students per class. We serve about 2,000 students per year.
That's a lot for three and a quarter.
And it's a lot of fun. It's a
That's so much
lot of
fun.
fun. Yeah.
Do you, in your curriculum, do you have a specific list of recommended repertoire that you're following with composers of color that you'd also be willing to share as a resource?
Sure. There is a very talented, he has finally started branding himself as a composer, but he's absolutely brilliant. His name is Caleb Vaughn Jones. Look him up. Tell him that Dr. Quentin Morris sent you. He was our inaugural composer in residence. Oh my God. He wrote 5 pieces for violin and piano for beginner level that are to die for. We've actually made it a requirement that everyone in the studio has to learn those 5 pieces because they're just so beautiful. Really great piano counterpoint as well. And then he wrote another piece that he wrote 2 more pieces. One is like a suite. It's about 15 minutes long. It's more for an intermediate advanced student. So it has some double stops and octave work in there. And it goes up to 7 positions. So, but it's a great piece. And it's transcribed as well for viola. All of the pieces are. Um, so I highly recommend him. Curtis Stewart was our composer in residence last year. He's at the Juilliard School. He's on their chamber music faculty. He also has some wonderful pieces. He wrote a violin concerto for us that our advanced students play, and then some beautiful, more kind of intermediate beginner violin works. And he also wrote chamber music. So we do a lot of violin, viola, chamber music in our studio in our group classes as well. So those are 2 gentlemen that I would highly recommend. Jeanne Kendrick, she just won a Grammy. She's a jazz singer. She is our next composer in residence, and we're really excited about her coming on. And we have a new music instructor. We are doing the finals now of and getting ready to hire a full-time music instructor because our studio is continuing to grow. So there's a lot of really great stuff that's going on, and I'm just so thankful.
Great. We have about 4 minutes, and there are a few extra questions in here. What I'm gonna skip over the what books recommend to giving youth music written by people of color, because I think, as we're noting, many composers there, but additional resources that are also available. There's
Mhm.
also a thank you, especially for reminding us that we are about serving our students. So thank you so much, Dr. Morris.
Yeah.
Has there been any work with transcribing any of the works that you're talking about to cello or other instruments?
You'll have to talk to the composers about that. I'm
There you go.
sure Caleb actually is a cellist, so I am sure that he has that music transcribed for cello. Curtis Stewart, you'll have to ask him. He'll
Right.
find that funny. He's I call him the super violin boy. So I don't know if he'll transcribe to cello, but you can find him on Instagram and ask.
Sure. So a participant, I'm relatively new to providing private lessons. I've taught a few in my hometown, but have moved and transitioned after school. And now moving again, looking to offer private lessons. I just visited the Key to Change Studio website and noticed your tuition pricing chart. Could you explain the grid that is provided on your site?
The
I think it's the
grid.
checkbox grid, like what you
Oh
get
yeah,
with
yeah, yeah. It
different.
just
Mhm.
tells, yeah, yeah, that checkbox just says what students can expect, and it gives the different activities. So if you're in group lessons or in combo or in private lessons or Young Arts Academy, they're all different things that you can expect to get from participating in those.
Perfect. And will you say Caleb Von Jones, Curtis Stewart, and Ms. Kendricks?
Actually,
What's her first
Johnny
name?
Kendrick,
Shawnee.
Johnny, she just won a Grammy. Her jazz quartet is called Sage, Saje. Johnny Kendrick is on the faculty at the Cornish College of the Arts. Tell her Dr. Quentin Morris sent you. She is amazing. And she actually played violin at one time too. And she does more, her stuff is like more jazz, I guess classical jazz, maybe. But she's fabulous. She's fabulous, fabulous, fabulous. Yeah.
Great. That, if you have any we have 2 minutes.
Sure. Yeah.
Last minute
Email me
questions.
if you have additional questions. And I'm happy to set up calls with all of you. If you need anything from me, I'm happy to be a resource to you and help you in your development from moving your studio from good to great or starting your studio.
Perfect. I
And
have
I'll
one.
just say this too, that I've been teaching for over 20 years. When I was first starting out, I had a really tough time. And from there, I worked really hard, and a lot of trial and a lot of error, especially in my early development as a teacher. And I've grown and evolved. So, like, if you're a college prof, if you've had problems, especially student evaluation forms, all that, I can help you because I have been there. I just got the Outstanding Teaching Award at my college. I was shocked to get it, but I got a story and I can help you, especially if you're at the college level. I can of course help anyone else, but those teaching evaluation scores and dealing with all the politics and stuff like that, been there, and I can help you.
Friends, I've displayed the QR code. Additional links are in the chat for either the Alfred Professional Development or the ASTA Professional Development. Either way, you'll get professional development. In the ASTA QR code, you can also provide feedback to ASTA on further e-learning webinars as we continue to offer this kind of professional development. We are incredibly thankful for Quentin and his insights today, and also to Alfred for partnering with us to
Yeah.
make this possible for both our ASTA and Alfred communities. So friends, thank you so much for stopping in on a wonderful, beautiful summer afternoon. We hope that you get some rest at some point this summer, but also that you're rejuvenated with your students. And thank you, Quentin, for rejuvenating us this afternoon.
Yeah, thank you all so much for coming to this webinar, and I hope it was helpful. And again, I'm willing to help anyone who might have any additional questions.
Thanks again, y'all. Have a great day. Bye.
Bye.